What's up guys, welcome back to another series where I will do a weekly outlook every Sunday or Monday and go over all pairs to see what they're up to. So my name is Oscar Madsen, I'm a funded trader as well as a trading coach inside the Trading Academy, and with this series I'm trying to help you guys how to analyze a chart. So let's begin with the DXY and let's begin by looking at the weekly time frame. We can see that we're bullish, we have made our pullback. Now we came in towards this demand zone as well as we took liquidity. So this looks like a nice point of interest to trade up higher from. So that's also what I'm expecting to do, because as you can see, we had a big impulse in towards the downside because of Trump, but now I think we could see a small pullback. So going to the daily, well, what do we see? On the daily, we were just bearish and bearish and bearish and bearish. And over here, this is our last swing structure, we are bearish. But for now, what do I expect? Well, of course, a move in towards the premium prices. So we broke structure over here, but now I'm expecting a pullback to take out this liquidity and tap in this supply and actually trade above this 50% level. So I'm still expecting upside, even though this supply is actually in control. And the reason for this is because we are in that weekly point of interest. So I'm still looking for upside, but it also depends on the fundamentals and on news, because there could also be the case that we still head down lower and trade, for example, inside this lower demand zone because of the news. So always keep your eyes out, but let's go to the 4 hour and let's see how we can see if we're going to trade up higher or lower. So for now, we are bearish, so we should trade down lower, but like I said, higher time frame above lower time frame. So I'm looking at weekly, and I think that we were in a nice point of interest to trade up higher. So over here, we can see that we are trading up higher and we are creating demand zones which we are respecting. So at the moment, this is our 4 hour fractal low, and this is our 4 hour fractal high. So we need to see if we break the fractal high, we are probably going to trade up higher. If we break down lower, we could probably trade down lower again. And then we go over to that weekly demand, which was also still open. And from there, we then want to look for longs. Okay. So this is the DXY. Now going over to EURUSD. Let's start off with the weekly first. So on the weekly time frame, we are bullish over here. We tapped this open supply and we took all of this liquidity out in one single move. So we took all of that liquidity, and now I think we could see a reaction down lower from that liquidity and this supply. Where could we see a reaction towards? Well, of course, maybe in towards this weekly demand zone over here, as well as this internal liquidity. So it's more clear on the daily, but this is going to be our internal liquidity, which we could take out. And why am I looking at this? Well, because the premium or the discount prices are over here. So we need to make a pullback in towards those prices before moving up higher. So this is what I'm expecting to trade towards, in towards this point. Okay. So that's my point of interest on the weekly. Going over now to the daily, let's see what's up. So on the daily, what do we see? Well, after tapping that weekly supply and we took that liquidity out, we now expect a reaction to the downside. So what do we then see? Well, we see a daily fractal break creating new supply, and from this supply we could trade down lower in towards what? In towards the discount prices as well as the liquidity and this open little demand zone. Now keep in mind that this was our demand in control. We now could have taken a little bit of liquidity to move or to fuel the next move up higher. But still, because we had that point of interest, I still think there is a lot of bearish momentum kicking in. So I could still expect some downside. Otherwise, if we do not see confirmation on the 4 hour, which I will show you next, if we don't see confirmation to the downside, then we could probably still trade up higher. But going over to the 4 hour now, what do we see? Well, of course, the same as the DXY, we are bullish. So we now took liquidity under this low, so we could possibly trade up higher. But like I said, on the higher time frame, we could trade down lower. So then we have this open supply as well as this liquidity above these highs. But what are people doing? They see these supply zones and they are selling from them. But I think that after grabbing liquidity, we could still trade down lower. So that's also what I'm looking for. Okay. After grabbing this liquidity, I will look for shorts if we see confirmation and if the fundamentals are in line as well. In towards what? In towards this demand zone. And I also think we could trade down lower, like I said on the daily, to that 50% level on the daily and weekly. But this is what I'm looking for. Going now over to GBPUSD, I think it still needs a lot more development. So what I'm looking for is for it to take out this liquidity high. So yes, we had this supply where we reacted from, created a new supply. Now this supply could push price down lower, but then again, we're so close to those highs, so almost equal highs. I think we can take that out before actually making the real move down lower. So going over to the daily, well, what do I see? We still have refined supply open above the highs, right? So I think we could still trade up higher a bit before moving down lower. If we already move down lower, I will look for longs in towards that supply. So we do have a refined supply zone over here with some internal liquidity here and here, which we also took out. So we could indeed get a reaction down lower in towards this demand. And from this demand, we either move up higher or we move down lower in line with the weekly. So going over to the 4 hour, let's see what price is doing and how it is acting. So over here, we can see that we created new supply over here, because what really happened? Well, we moved up higher, down lower, up higher, we swiped early sellers, and then we trade down lower. So that means we created this supply zone. So actually from this supply, I'm looking to go short if we see enough confirmation again, because I find it tricky that we still have open supply zones above these highs. But if we see enough confirmation, I think we could definitely take out all of this trend line liquidity we have created under these lows. So this is definitely what I'm looking at. And then what would be my TP? Well, I would say that this internal liquidity would be my TP, because if we take it out, we then have only this demand left and the discount prices to push price back up higher. So this is what I'm looking for on GBPUSD. Now going over to AUDUSD, let's take a look at the weekly. So on the weekly, we are bearish and we still need to make that pullback in towards those 50% levels. We now just took liquidity under this low with a huge wick swiping everyone under these lows. So now I'm actually expecting a move still up higher to that 50% level. So because we broke up higher, we also created this demand, and from this demand I'm looking for higher prices. So if we get a little pullback, then I will trade a long setup to those 50% levels. Going to the daily, we now also just turned bullish on the daily, which is perfect. We now have this weekly but also daily demand, and what I can see, well, we have some liquidity over here, some daily liquidity, and if I take the 50% level, then I can see that we could see a possible reversal from those prices. Of course, if we grab liquidity over here, we already have this demand, we have liquidity, we are bullish. So if I then see some confirmation that we could trade up higher, then I could already take a long setup to that to those prices. But let's see where the 50% is located for the weekly. So this is not the 50% for the weekly. I think this is. So yeah, this is looking perfect. So the 50% on the weekly is located over here around this liquidity and around this supply. So what is going to be my my TP? Well, of course, this supply zone. Okay, so if I want to take a long setup, I could take a long setup all the way up to those highs. Okay, from there again, I will look at shorts, but that's not for now. That's for a couple of weeks, maybe even months. So on the 4 hour, we can see that we're also turning bullish, or we turn bullish, and we have some internal liquidity under these lows still need to be taken out. So I'm just looking for this liquidity to get taken out, this internal liquidity, and from this liquidity, again, like I said, I will look for confirmation in order to trade up higher in towards those prices. So going over to NZDUSD now, looking at the weekly time frame, we swiped this weekly low and we failed to break, so we were bearish, but we failed to break the weekly low, and we just grabbed liquidity under this. So now I still think we could see some upside, because what do we know? If we fail to break a low, we are probably going to take liquidity on the upside, right? So we have liquidity above these highs, which we possibly could take out in the near future. So this is also what I'm looking for to take out as well. Then what can I see? Well, we also have a supply open over here, so it would be nice to trade all the way over there, but again, that's a far way ahead. So what is our nearest point of interest to trade towards? Well, that's this weekly supply with this internal liquidity, which we still need to take out. So going over to the daily here, or actually not yet, we now see that we have this demand which could push price up higher. So I'm looking for a retracement in that demand, and then I will take a long setup in towards this supply. Going to the daily now, what can we see? Well, of course, that we turned daily bullish over here, because over here we didn't have a break of structure. As we all know, we need a candle close, so this was just a liquidity grab. Then now we turned daily bullish, and how do we take our premium versus discount from the swing low to the swing high? And then we have this daily demand, and from this daily demand I will look at longs again to trade up all the way into that weekly supply, with as well the internal liquidity that's laying above all these highs. So this is what I'm looking for on the daily. Going over to the 4 hour, what can we see? Okay, we are 4 hour bullish. Oh, we're 4 hour bullish. We then have basically this whole demand zone with some internal liquidity as well. And if we take our PVD, what can we see? Okay, so we have some internal liquidity over here, but I'm going to take this one. Why? Because it's closer to the 50% level. So if we take that liquidity, we could then look for longs. If we take this liquidity, we are not yet near the 50% level, so move up higher is not the highest probability. That's why I'm looking for this liquidity. But after we take this liquidity and see confirmation, I'm definitely 100% going to take a long setup on NU. Going over to EURAUD, so what do I see? Well, on the weekly first, we are weekly bullish. We have some internal liquidity, and I think it's time for a little pullback because of this huge impulse in towards the upside. We now took some internal liquidity over here, so a pullback is possible. Going over to the daily, looking over here, we had some internal liquidity over here, but we didn't took this internal liquidity yet, but we took all of these liquidity points, so we could already get a reaction. So where could we see a reaction towards? Well, we are daily bullish, and if we see this move up, we could still get a move down in towards this daily demand as well as at 50% level. So going over to the 4 hour, well, what do I see? On the 4 hour, we are again 4 hour bullish, so we could see a retracement in towards what? In towards discount prices. From these prices, we could move up higher and then move down lower. But again, what do I see? I can see that we have some bearish order flow, right? We are respecting the supply zones, and we are respecting the highs, and then again respecting the highs and breaking the lows again and again and again. So for now, we have bearish order flow, and this is great to take some short setups. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to possibly look for shorts here in the supply, maybe swipe these highs, then look for some confirmation in order to trade towards what? towards this open demand zone with this internal liquidity, which also perfectly aligns with the daily PVD. So if we take the daily PVD from this low to this high, what do we see? Perfectly aligns with this demand zone and this liquidity. So why am I looking at shorts even though we are 4 hour bullish and we hit discount prices? Well, because of the daily PVD that's located over here, and I think we need to see a pullback as well as the bearish order flow. So if we turn order flow bullish, then I'm not going to take a long setup because of the daily, which still need to make a pullback down lower. But if the order flow stays bearish, I'm definitely going to take a short setup in towards this liquidity low. Okay, going over to GBPAUD. So what do I see? We're going over to the weekly time frame first. Well, we are weekly bullish, so we turned weekly bullish and we also took liquidity as well in the same time above this high. I'm definitely expecting a pullback now, and I can see a open demand zone with open liquidity, so I'm looking for a move in towards that demand, and from there we could either move up higher or we could trade down lower in towards the premium versus discount of the weekly time frame, like this, all the way, and take out all of this liquidity. But that's for later. Now I'm still expecting a move in towards this weekly demand, which I'm also going to mark on the daily. So under these lows we have some liquidity, and I know this might be boring, this weekly outlook, but I think you guys can learn a lot from it. So make it sure you comment down below if this is what you're looking for, because it really takes a lot of my time, but I think it has great value for you guys. So let me know what you guys think. So on the daily time frame we are bullish. We have the discount prices, and we still need to touch the discount prices before moving up higher. We then have these liquidity lows, which you could also take out soon or later, as well as this weekly demand. So because the weekly had this beautiful price action that we could trade in towards this demand later, I don't want to look for longs from this demand because the daily is bullish. We're almost around discount prices. We have this demand, so we could trade up higher, but because the weekly time frame, I still think we could trade down lower. So then I'm going over to the 4 hour to see if it's possible. So on the 4 hour we are bullish, kind of the same as the daily, so same PVD as well. We have a refined amount over here with liquidity under the lows. So what can I then see? I can then see that we have bearish order flow as well on GBPAUD. So what does this mean? Well, that we could trade down lower in towards those lows. So for now, I don't want to take any short setups because of the daily that could push price a little bit up higher, and the weekly then from here, for example, could trade down lower. So I think it's not the best here to go short, also because we are ranging, so everything could happen. We could see a swipe before moving down lower, we could see a swipe up higher and then down lower, so everything could happen. I don't think GBPAUD is on my list next week, so I'm not going to trade this one. Going over to EURNZD, looking at the weekly time frame, we took liquidity above this weekly high, but we didn't yet got a break of structure, so that might be in place to move up higher soon. So for the rest, we have clear bullish order flow, really clear. But for now, what can I see? Well, I can see that we have some internal liquidity over here, which we could take out in order to tap in towards this demand, connecting the bullish order flow again, and then trade up higher. So that's also what I'm looking for. Going over to the daily time frame, well, we are daily bullish. And well, if I then look at PVD, let's remove this first. If I then look at the PVD from the daily time frame, like this, well, it aligns perfectly with this internal liquidity over here. And then of course that weekly demand, which is also daily demand as well. So what am I looking for? Well, of course, this demand is now in control, but if this daily fractal breaks and we get a sort of pullback, we could definitely look for shorts. but I think it's already valid to look for shorts on the 4-hour. So let's go over to the 4-hour. Well, on the 4-hour actually we are 4-hour bullish, and we now have demand as well as liquidity. And what can I see? Well, we had this supply which was in control like this, and then now we have this supply which was in control. So if we break above this high, a lot of people would buy if they only look at the 4-hour, because on the 4-hour we are bullish. Structure is checked, we have demand. Structure is checked, we have liquidity. Not structure, demand is checked, we have liquidity checked. We have pre-VD because of this move up. We touched the discount prices, and we now could trade up higher. And once we break this high, we also have bullish order flow. So this would be a perfect 4-hour trade. But what do we know? Well, the daily and weekly don't align with this kind of setup, because we're looking to go short to this liquidity over here. So what I think is going to happen, we're probably going to trade above this high, attract buyers, and then we are going to sell off. Or we're going to trade a little bit up higher in towards this refined supply, take liquidity here, and then I'm definitely going to look for shorts in towards the lows. But yeah, I still need to wait for further development. Going over to GBPNZD, looking at the weekly time frame, what do we see? Well, that we still have some internal liquidity open over here. So that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to take out, because what can I see? Very clean bullish order flow. We are respecting every single demand zone. So just drawing them out quickly, they are not correct 100%, but as you can see, we are respecting the demand zones and trading up higher every single time. So now we're inside this refined weekly demand, and we could now push price back up higher. So over here I can see that we have some liquidity that we grabbed, and now I'm definitely looking to get a move up higher, maybe take this weekly liquidity or just trade in towards the supply. From there, either trade down lower or up higher, but I think the highest probability is that we just continue up higher. Why? Because we just have been continuing up and up and up and up. So looking at the daily here, what can we see? Well, we are daily bullish. We took daily liquidity under this low, and we are inside this daily demand, as well as we are in discount prices. So absolutely perfection here to trade up higher. Now what can I also see? We got this daily fractal break in towards the downside, and then after this daily fractal break, we turned daily fractal bullish over here, which is our confirmation that we now have daily demand that could push price back up higher. And from here we could definitely look for longs in towards these liquidity highs first, and then later in towards this high. So going to the 4-hour here, what do I see on the 4-hour? Well, on the 4-hour we were 4-hour bullish, and then we were bearish. So even though we are bearish, we could still take a long setup. And what's the reason? Well, because of the weekly and the daily, which are higher time frame, as well as we still need to make a pullback in towards those premium prices. So now that I'm looking at it, we perfectly tap in this demand, and then we got that daily fractal break. So with this daily we got that daily fractal break, so we have the 4-hour demand here. From this demand, I'm definitely looking to take a just a long setup, maybe something like this, trading up higher. But what I'm going to do, so this is definitely possible, but what I think I'm going to do is I want to target these highs, because like I said, on the daily, those are highs that I want to target, because from here we could possibly see a small reaction because of this daily and weekly supply, as well as that liquidity. So that's something I want to target. So then I'm going to look for small refinement of the trade. So maybe we could take our entry on top of it, this internal liquidity over here on the 1-hour, and let's see. Okay, so this is what it's looking at or like right now. So with this, yeah, we're still trading above that liquidity, you see. So one more TP around this liquidity point. So what I'm going to do, wait for a tap in towards this demand, then look for 1 hour confirmation, and then take a shorter trade on the 1 hour to trade in towards that liquidity. But I'm definitely looking for upside next week on GBPNZD. Going over AUDNZD, I just made a trade breakdown on this trade, so make sure to watch it because yeah, it will help you a lot. But we're weekly bullish, we are consolidating, but inside this consolidation we are kind of having this bullish order flow. We now took liquidity under here, so we could move up higher, and I think, or I see this open supply where we could trade towards. Looking at the daily, well, what do I see? Well, on the daily, let's zoom out a bit. We are daily bullish, so it's a really big swing, but it's not my fault. But we have bullish order flow as well, and I can see that we took liquidity under these lows. So now that we took liquidity, I think it's ready to move up higher in towards that open weekly supply or daily supply and take this liquidity out. So then going over to the 4 hour, or actually let's say at the daily. So on the daily, our daily fractal is still bearish, and what can I see? Well, this is my daily fractal over here. So if we break this daily fractal, then I am looking to trade up higher. So going over to the 4 hour now, well, what do I see? On the 4 hour, we kind of had this channel over here, and we now broke out of it, and I now think we could move up higher in towards that supply like I told you about. So on the 4 hour, yes, we are bearish, but then again we can trade to premium prices, and what is there around the premium prices? This supply with this liquidity, which I definitely think we could trade towards. So now that we created a demand zone and now we've created another demand zone, we have bullish order flow, so I'm definitely expecting upside. Then I can see we have some internal liquidity over here as well. So once we take out this liquidity, I think I'm going to step in one more time, just a scaling, something like this maybe, trading to the highs. So that's definitely a possibility, but I will keep you guys updated in my update channel. For now, it's just all thinking. Tomorrow I will see how I'm actually going to take my entry on GBPNZD and AUDNZD. Going over to USD Swiss. So on USD Swiss, well, you can see that we got big wicks over here, which you, in my opinion, can just leave. And then we can see that we tapped in towards this little demand zone, I think. Let's see. So this is our demand, yeah. And we tapped right into this demand. So we tapped in this demand, and then we swiped early buyers, and now we got a weekly fractal break, causing a new demand to be created, and now from there we could trade higher in towards the premium prices of this bearish structure. So going to the daily, we are also bearish. We also have the same PVD, and after this weekly fractal break, we have created this demand, and now I think we could trade in towards this liquidity from this demand zone as well. Looking at the 4 hour, we are 4 hour bullish. We have some internal liquidity over here. This is a great stop because it's the weekly, or a great low because it's a weekly fractal low, which swiped early buyers. So now I'm definitely looking at upside after swiping this internal liquidity, and this is going to be my target. So definitely looking nice USD Swiss. Going over to Euro Swiss, looking at the weekly time frame. So on the weekly, what do I see? Let's remove everything here first because it's not looking too great. So what do I see? We grab liquidity under these lows, but we have been breaking all the lows at all times, so I could still expect to trade down lower from this supply zone, right? So we could still trade down lower. Again, this is probably because it's weekly, also fundamentally, but we could possibly also respect the low because we failed to break the low. We could respect this low. What do we know? If we fail to break the low, we could take liquidity at the highs. Because we also took liquidity over here, we could still trade up higher to take liquidity at the highs, which is not unusual or not unlikely to happen. but we'll see on the daily what we're looking for. So on the daily, actually, we are bearish, and we have also bearish order flow, and our order flow is like this, boom, and then we have the next supply, which is going to be this supply. And inside this supply, what can I see? Well, I can see that we have this daily liquidity over here. So what I'm going to do, I can see that we created this demand over here, and we grabbed some liquidity under these lows like we saw on the weekly. I think we could still move a bit up higher in towards that liquidity, but I think the highest probability is to take a short from that supply because it's in line with the trend and the order flow. So I'm definitely just waiting for this supply to get hit in order to trade down lower. Going to the 4 hour, what can I see? Well, on the 4 hour we are bearish, and like we said, we wanted to trade to this internal liquidity sooner or later. Let's take our PVD tool as well. So on the PVD tool, we see that we tapped the PVD tool or the premium prices, and now we see a reaction down lower. So what am I going to do? Am I going to take a short setup here? No. On the 4 hour it might look great, but on the daily we needed this liquidity to get taken out before moving down lower. Am I going to take a short setup? No, because we have tapped the premium prices as well. We are bearish, so I'm not going to take a long setup. The only thing I see here is this little supply. Once we tap that, take out this liquidity, I'm going to look for shorts to trade down lower again in towards that daily and weekly low. Going over to GBP Swiss here, what am I looking at? So over here, this is going to be our swing. So we just turned swing bullish, but first let's take a look at the weekly. So on the weekly, we are weekly bearish. So in long term, we are going to break the low, or that's what we're expecting at least. And we also have bearish order flow. So what is my supply? This is going to be my weekly supply. So I'm definitely expecting a touch inside this supply. From this supply, we could trade down lower again, which is a possibility. For now, we took liquidity under these lows. So the move we should have traded was this move up higher towards this supply. From here, we could trade down lower, or we could higher and then trade down lower. So for now, I'm just expecting a little bit more upside to this supply. So on the daily time frame, we are daily bearish actually. Now let's take our PVD from the swing high to the swing low, and we also just tapped the 50% level, so we could move down lower because we also took this liquidity above this high. So now that we took this liquidity and we have this open supply open, it actually looks quite nice to take a short setup from that supply, because on the weekly we are bearish and we have bearish order flow, so we have this supply where we could go short from. On the daily, we are daily bearish, we have tapped the 50% level, we have this supply, and we have this liquidity where we could react from to trade down lower. So looking at the 4 hour, that's our only con. We are 4 hour bullish, but after grabbing liquidity above these highs, we also tap in towards the supply as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set my alert on top of this liquidity, and then what I want to see is a liquidity grab, tapping in towards that higher time frame supply, so ready to short, get a little confirmation, and then I will short in towards what? In towards our PVD, because let's say our high is going to be created around here. Then what can I short towards? In towards this amount, with this being our internal liquidity. So this is actually what I'm looking for. So a move up higher, taking that liquidity confirmation, then a short setup here towards that internal liquidity. But we'll need to see how price will evolve. So on the weekly time frame here, on AUD Swiss, we are bearish, and we could make a pullback in towards the discount prices. So from this high towards the low, again repeating the same thing over and over again. So we could still move up higher on the weekly time frame. Going over to the daily here, what can I see? Well, on the daily we have the same swing. We have some liquidity open as well as this supply, and yeah, in my opinion we could still trade a bit up higher, but again our daily fractal is bearish over here, so this is where we broke it. This is our high, this is our low, but still I think we could still trade up higher because of the weekly 50% being around these prices, and I think we could trade towards this supply. Going over to the 4 hour here, well, on the 4 hour we can say that we had a 4 hour structure break over here as well, and then we turned bullish over here just now. So because we had a wick over here, it's actually going to be like this and like this. So what happened, this is not our break of structure over here. So normally once price was here we didn't had a break of structure, but because we broke this structure over here and then we broke this high, this is going to be my swing. I'm going to take the PVD tool from the swing low now to the swing high. So this is going to change the swing low from here to here, and this is actually important to know. Okay, so now that I know this, well, let's remove this real quick. Now that I know that we are bullish over here and this is our my discount prices, if we take this internal liquidity around the discount prices, I think from here we could trade up higher, like I wanted to on the weekly time frame. So what I'm looking for is this actually, to trade this weekly liquidity out, and from here we could, for our liquidity out, to trade up higher. So this is also what I'm expecting on AUD Swiss. Looking at NZD Swiss here, let's take a look at the weekly time frame first. On a weekly we are actually weekly bearish, and I can see that we are almost around the 50% levels, and we have tapped, I think, this weekly supply. So let's see, we didn't yet tap this weekly supply, so expecting a little swipe to then take a short setup down lower. Going over to the daily, we are daily bearish. We have the 50% level, we have this supply, so definitely looking for one more swipe and then looking for shorts. Looking at the 4 hour here, we are also, you could say that this is your swing, but we can clearly see that we had this move down lower. Now we create a pullback, so we are bearish. We have this supply still open, and now after tapping that supply I will look at shorts, which is in line with the weekly, daily and 4 hour. So I'm definitely looking at shorts. Now what do we need to keep in mind? We almost don't have any liquidity over here, so we could even swipe up this internal liquidity, so actually a big move up higher before moving down lower. So keep that in mind. I'm also going to try that on my screen as well, or on my chart. Going over to CAD Swiss, looking at the weekly first. Well, on the weekly we are bearish, but we could make a pullback in towards premium prices. We have this open supply, we now have the fractal low break and now the fractal high break, so we created a demand zone. From this demand we could trade up higher in towards this weekly supply. Going over to the daily, we have the same swing, and if I take a look, well, we have liquidity above these highs with this supply still being open, and we have this demand zone, and from this demand we could push up higher in towards that supply. So looking so far very clean to take a long setup. On the 4 hour, what can I see? We are bearish. Why is this not my swing? Because these were all impulses from Trump, and I don't like to see impulses as my swing structure. So this is going to be my swing, up higher, down lower, and now I'm expecting a move up higher again. What can I see? Liquidity as well as supply, so I'm expecting a move up higher. And where do I expect to move higher from? Well, probably, let's take this away, probably from this internal liquidity. Boom, boom. So this is what I'm expecting. Again, I only take trades when they are in line with the fundamentals as well. But again, I would like to see this liquidity grab and then trade up higher, which is looking really, really clean. Going over to USDCAD, So on the weekly time frame, what do I see? Well, on the weekly, we took all of this liquidity above these highs. So then what happened? We had bearish order flow. So now we have this supply. We took liquidity under here. So I'm definitely looking to trade up higher towards this supply, and from this supply we could then again trade down lower. But for now we definitely could see some upside because we took weekly liquidity. On the daily, we are daily bullish. We have daily demand as well. We took daily liquidity, and now let's take a look closer. We had a no, we now have a yes, and we now have a daily fractal break creating daily demand. From this daily demand we could trade up higher towards what? Towards this liquidity and towards this demand supply. So going over to the 4 hour, what can I see? Well, I can see that we have some liquidity here as well as above these highs. So we are actually bearish over here. We have liquidity above the highs with supply also open over here. And now we are also creating bullish order flow. So I'm expecting a move up higher, definitely. What am I looking at? Maybe a swipe of the lows from Thursday. And then after swiping this liquidity, moving up higher. And then I will take a long setup after we break this high again. In towards what? In towards those premium prices. So weekly, daily, and 4 hour align here, so definitely a nice setup. EURCAD, looking at the weekly time frame, what do I see? Well, on EURCAD we are bearish. We have this huge supply zone as well as this liquidity that we grabbed over here, so we could move down lower in towards this refined demand with liquidity under, but we also still have some more liquidity that we could take out in order to trade down lower. So yeah, let's take a look down closer. After swiping this liquidity, we got early sellers. We then swiped them, and then we swiped them again. And now we got a fractal break to the downside actually. So now we have this being our supply, which could push price down lower in towards that liquidity and this demand. Going over to the daily, well, on the daily we are daily bullish, and from the low to the high, well, we take our PVD. So this is our discount prices. We have our demand zone over here with liquidity over here. Now that we turned weekly fractal bearish, we have this supply, and I'm definitely looking to short towards those discount prices. Going over to the 4 hour, well, what do I see? Well, on the 4 hour, yes, we are bullish, but then again, higher time frame over a lower time frame, and what I'm looking for is probably like this liquidity to get taken out, then some confirmation, and then we could short in towards the lows as well as this demand and this liquidity. So that's definitely what I'm looking for on EURCAD. Again, weekly, daily, and 4 hour aligning a little bit, or not 4 hour here, but weekly and daily. And then on the 4 hour, we could look for our entry model to trade down lower. Going over to GBPCAD now. Again, what do I see? Well, we just turned weekly bullish, so we could now get a retracement. But then again, because we have that bullish order flow, it's still possible to trade them higher and then get a move down lower. So where could we get a move up higher to? Well, towards this liquidity, and from this liquidity I'm looking for a pullback. So for now I'm just expecting more upside in line with this order flow to trade up higher in towards that liquidity high. Going over to the daily now, well, what do I see? Well, we are daily bullish. We have daily order flow that's bullish. We took daily liquidity. So definitely looking nice to go up higher. We also have this demand as well that could push price up higher. So we also have liquidity underneath to take out to fuel and higher probability to move up higher. For now, we also have bearish order flow, but once we tap this demand, I'm definitely looking at the upside. For now, we're possibly going to trade down lower and then trade up higher. Going over to the 4 hour, well, my 4 hour swing is the same as the daily, so the discount prices, or is it the same? Yeah, so it is the same. So we are 4 hour bullish. We then hit discount prices, and now we created this demand zone with some liquidity underneath. So if we get a tap in towards this, I'm definitely looking at confirmation to trade to that swing high again. This is looking super clean, and as you can see, I already have my alert over here. Going over to NZDCAD, looking at the weekly time frame, what do I see? Bearish, so I want to trade to this low, but we now swipe the lows over here, so we could expect a little bit move up higher to take some liquidity above the high, and then we could short again. Looking at the daily time frame, I'm bullish. We took liquidity, so now we could move up higher. So again, like weekly and daily are now against each other, so not the best to trade over here. But after swiping, let's say this liquidity, we could still look for a small short in line with the weekly, take out these daily lows. Going over to the 4 hour, we are 4 hour bullish. We are inside the supply, we took liquidity, so we could also already get a move down lower in towards the discount prices. But like I said, NZDCAD is not my favorite because things are against each other, and I would like to trade all time frames in line with each other. So looking at AUDCAD, so we are bearish over here. We just swipe liquidity under this low and also probably under this low over here. Yes, so now we got that move up higher. Now we still have this supply over here, which could push price down lower, what I'm also expecting it to do. So this is our weekly low, what I'm expecting to break. But if we can take a look, yeah, we're kind of having bearish order flow, right? But we swiped a lot of liquidity at the low, so we could see some liquidity at the highs, but then we will also swipe the order flow, and then we could also trade up higher. So we'll need to see for further development, but for now we could see a reaction from this supply happening. On the daily time frame, we are actually bearish, and we now, like we saw on the weekly, tapped in towards this bigger supply. And if we now see, or what do we now see? Daily early sellers, we swipe them, and now we have created a possible good high. If we break the fractal, then we could look at shorts in towards the highs again. Looking at the 4 hour, we are bearish, and we now probably hit the 50% level already. Yes, we now have this 4 hour supply zone where we could take a short from. But what can I see? Well, that we only have one tap. So these are early sellers for me, waiting for a swipe, then confirmation, and then I want to take a short setup. So for now, it's not looking too good. But if we see that swipe of this high, then that confirmation, so that daily fractal, then we could take a short setup in line with that weekly supply, the daily play, and the 4 hour play. So this actually looks a bit better. Going over to the yen pairs now. Well, what do I see? We have bullish order flow as well as we are bullish, so we could trade in towards this supply next in line with this order flow. Looking at the daily, we are daily bullish. We got bullish order flow, right? And now we are respecting every single low. We are breaking the high, so that's also still what I'm expecting to do. We now have this open demand zone with this open liquidity. Once we tap this, I'm definitely looking at upside on the yen basket. Looking on the 4 hour, we are also 4 hour bullish. We have discount prices with this open demand over here with open liquidity underneath. Now we also have bearish order flow, so I'm just expecting continuation down lower in this demand. From here, I will take long setups in towards what? In towards the swing high again. Going over to Euro Yen, well, what am I looking at on the weekly time frame? Well, on the weekly time frame, we are bearish. We still have open supply, we have open liquidity, so we could move up higher before moving down lower. But we have equal highs over here, which are a lot of liquidity. So if we swipe them, I'm still expecting a little move down lower, but then we could trade up higher. Looking at the daily here, we are also daily bearish. We have bearish order flow on the daily time frame. But then what did I see? Well, we switched order flow, and now we have bullish order flow from this demand. Now if we swipe this high, we then continue, create new demand, and we could trade up higher. But definitely after swiping these highs, we could see a reaction. so a possible short after swiping these highs is possible, but in the long term I would like to take a long setup in towards this weekly supply. Going over to the 4 hour, what do I see? Well, on the 4 hour we are also 4 hour bullish, so a perfect long setup would be over here towards these highs. If we swipe the high, we can expect a little pullback, but if we swipe the high, we then turn again bullish. So then this is going to be our low around here, our high, and around here 50%. So then I'm looking for the 50%, and then I'm going to long again. For now, am I going to take a short setup over here? That depends on the yen basket, if that gives confirmation as well to trade up higher, because if the yen basket trades up higher, euro yen trades down lower. So if we swipe the highs, I'm definitely going to short, if there's confirmation, of course. Going over to GJ, so we are bearish, as well as bearish order flow, as well as we took liquidity out this large supply, so this supply is strong. So definitely looking at shorts on the weekly time frame. On the daily, we're also bearish. We took liquidity here, and we have bearish order flow. Now we have this supply to trade down lower from, kind of consolidating. So as you can see, the 0.5 level is acting as support, and this 75 level is acting as resistance. So from this supply, I'm also looking to short. Going over to the 4 hour, well, what do I see? Well, we are 4 hour bearish. We now have this liquidity over here with this supply as well. So I'm definitely looking to short from this, because once again, everything is aligned weekly, daily, and 4 hour time frame. So I'm going to put my alert on top of this supply, and then I will look at short setups on GJ. Going over to USD yen, well, what do I see? Well, on the daily, on the weekly time frame, we swipe liquidity and discount prices, so then we could move up higher. We failed to break the highs, so we moved down lower, and we took liquidity under the lows. Now that we took liquidity under the lows, we failed to break this low. So now if we fail to break this low, I'm expecting to trade up higher. So now that we also swipe this liquidity, I'm definitely expecting a move up higher. For now, only towards this supply, because we have bearish order flow. But once we break that supply, I'm definitely looking to trade all the way up towards the high. Looking at the daily here on UJ, well, what do I see? We took liquidity underneath this low, and we are daily bearish. So after swiping this liquidity, we could expect a move in towards the premium prices. So I'm still expecting upside, because we created our own demand because of breaking the fractal high here. Now we broke the fractal high again, so we've created another demand zone over here, which could push price up higher. Now if we take this first internal liquidity, I'm also expecting liquidity to get taken out at the lows, and then from here I'm again looking for longs in towards those premium prices. So for now, what I'm looking at is longs, but I will need to see what the 4 hour looks like in order to take one. So on the 4 hour, we are 4 hour bullish, and what can I see? Well, on PVD, we still need to make a retracement to the discount prices, which is around this liquidity, and we also have an open demand. So if we get a pullback swiping this trend, then I'm looking at confirmation, and then I will definitely take long setups in towards this liquidity high and this open supply in line with that weekly and daily. So definitely looking great to look for long setups. Going over to AJ, well, what do I see? Well, we are bearish, and we swipe liquidity under the lows. So now we could definitely swipe liquidity at the highs 100%, and we also need to trade towards this supply because it's around that 50% level. Going over to the daily, well, we are bearish as well, but we now have bullish order flow because we broke the fractal low, then the fractal high, creating demand. Now we broke the high again, creating new demand. Now we broke the high again, creating new demand. So we also have bullish order flow, so we could just continue up higher, what I'm also looking for to do. And I'm definitely looking to trade towards this supply zone. So if we see a retracement, then I'm definitely looking to long again. Going over to the 4 hour, we are 4 hour bearish. We do have an open supply around that 50% level on the higher time frame, and we have this internal liquidity, so I'm definitely looking to trade towards that. So this was our daily order flow. If I see some retracement to grab liquidity underneath here, then I will long. But if we trade down even lower to take liquidity under these lows, then I will wait for 4-hour order flow to turn bullish again. Then I will take a long setup to the highs again. So I'm definitely looking at longs here, but I need to see how we react from these zones because we are kind of consolidating. So a swipe underneath the lows before moving up higher is not unlikely. So I will be patient here and wait for further development. Looking at NZDJPY, what do I see? So we just turned weekly bearish. So let me see. So we just turned weekly bearish. We are inside this supply. Okay, so my PVD tool just disappeared, but we are weekly bearish. We have this PVD or 50% level where we are at the moment, so we could now see a retracement back down again from this supply. We just took liquidity at the lows, so we could take some liquidity at the highs, maybe these highs, then move down lower. But for now we are inside supply as well as bearish order flow, so we could still trade down lower because we have an open demand and still some liquidity to grab. Going over to the daily here, what do I see? Well, we have open supply with a lot of liquidity above the highs. We are daily bearish and around at 50% level, so we could still trade down lower. If we continue the bullish order flow, we could just trade up higher in towards that supply. But for now, let's keep it real. We are inside this supply, we are bearish, so we could look for shorts. Going over to the 4-hour, we are also 4-hour bearish. We took liquidity over here, we are inside supply, and now we are having bullish order flow. But if we swipe the high again, which is a no for me, and then if we switch the order flow bearish by swiping this low, then I'm definitely looking at shorts towards some liquidity under the lows. So that's what I'm looking for NZDJPY. Looking at Swiss yen now, looking at the weekly, I called the lows before, like a month ago. We were bullish, we swiped liquidity under the lows, and then we swiped their lows one more time, and now I was expecting this move in towards this supply, taking out this liquidity highs, which we are actually doing. So I'm expecting still some more upside. Going over to the daily, we were daily bullish over here, like so beautiful. I called it over here. We were going to take out those highs, but we are bullish. We took liquidity, we have bullish order flow, and now we have these demand zones, and from this latest demand I'm looking to continue up higher. Now this is what I'm looking for, just trading up higher in towards that supply over here, which I'm definitely looking forward to do. Going over to the 4-hour, well, what do I see? Well, on the 4-hour we are also bullish. We trade in towards this demand as well as a 50% levels. We took liquidity underneath these internals, and then we swiped so once again, price action is so beautiful, guys. We tapped this demand, we got early buyers, we swipe early buyers over here, and then we just boom, we trade up higher. So after this fractal break over here, this was a fractal break. If you do not understand fractals, make sure to watch my video on fractals. But what can I see? We are bullish, and we have bullish order flow now. So this was a beautiful setup here, like beautiful weekly, daily, 4-hour aligned, so beautiful, and you could even like take it all the way up to the highs. So this was a beautiful trade here that you could have taken. What I'm now looking for is maybe a retracement in towards maybe some internal liquidity here, and then I will look for confirmation to trade up higher again. Going over to CAD yen, looking at the weekly or on the monthly, I can see that we have this open demand, and this is what bothers me. So I want to tap this before taking any longs, because otherwise I find it too risky to take a long setup here. But going over to the weekly, we are weekly bullish over here. We took liquidity underneath these lows, stepped in towards this demand, this little demand zone, took liquidity under the lows one more time, a swipe. So now we could move up higher, but I would like to see a tap in towards that monthly open. So on the daily time frame, what do I see? Well, on the daily we are bearish over here. So I still expect to break this swing low over here, which we for now did not. But I still think that we could move down lower to get a break of structure, as well as stepping in towards that monthly demand. And only from there I will look at longs. But am I going to take a short setup? No, because we swiped the lows multiple times, so we could now trade up higher. So yeah, for now, no swing setups here, because I don't have a clear direction where price can trade towards. If I now take a look at the 4 hour, we are bearish. We have some liquidity here as well as supply. So I'm going to take a short setup, probably to take some internal liquidity, because what could we do? We could from here trade up higher, or we could trade down lower. So this is definitely something that I have on my mind. And from this supply, I will possibly take a short setup. Going over to my last pair, EURGBP. So this was a long outlook, but again, it is needed because we want all the pairs. So we are bearish, as well as a little bit bearish order flow. We now have this supply. We took liquidity above all these highs, so definitely expecting a pullback down lower. Looking at the daily time frame, we are daily bullish, and after that liquidity and that refined supply, we trade down lower. We also took some liquidity now underneath these lows, so we could see a reaction maybe up higher, but we didn't yet tap the discount prices as well as this refined demand. So I'm definitely expecting still to trade down lower. But what can I see? Well, this daily liquidity was also a daily fractal break. So now what do I see? We have daily supply. So I'm going to take a long setup from this supply to trade down lower in towards this open demand, because I think we could definitely get that pullback all the way in towards this demand zone. Going over to the 4 hour here, what do I see? Well, we are 4 hour bullish. We still have some internal liquidity underneath here. So yeah, after swiping the lows here, I want to see all of this trend line break, and then from this open supply over here, what do I want to do? Let's try this out. Boom, trend line liquidity. If we get back in towards this supply, I'm definitely going to wait for confirmation, and then I will take 100% a short setup in towards this liquidity low and this daily demand. So thank you guys for listening. I know it was long, but I hope you guys learned a lot from it, and see you guys next week. Bye.